cutting off your head.
Well,
There
yeah, it's a little.
There you go.
It's either my my head or my voice.
Oh, you didn't want us to see your eyes. That's why.
All right, y'all are now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Julie.
Mary Ann, you're gonna start?
Sure. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for your volunteer positions with the audit committee. Last year we had a great audit, and working with Dorota is always a pleasure. I wanted to get together today just to say hello and meet each of you, and then go through the financials that she just submitted to see if you have any questions. So at this point, I'll just turn it over to Dorota.
I think we need to call a meeting to order first, right?
Okay, the meeting is called to order on today, January 18th at 10:03 a.m.
And
Do we have any move to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So move.
Second.
We don't have the minutes.
We don't have them.
I thought we got them. We got them before, though. Didn't we get them before?
No.
I saw them. No?
I
I've never
think
seen it.
Petra was still working on them. Yeah.
Then we
Okay,
can't,
sorry.
yes.
Well, we'll send the minutes out and then we can try and approve them, okay?
I'm sure we can approve them at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we start?
Just to clarify, the minutes are apparently finished, but the computer crashed. Petra's computer crashed. They're trying to recover it, and I assume that'll be a complete record of our meeting with the auditors, which finalized the audit review last June, which meeting was held, I guess, in November, December. But in any event, it's key that we get those minutes and some of the critical points that were raised with the discussion, and the comments and responses from the auditors are included in those minutes, because we want a record of that.
That's very important. I didn't realize that her computer crashed. I know it wasn't working, but I didn't realize it had crashed. That's awful. Okay.
Yes.
Dorota.
Okay. So yes. So let me share my screen. I'll just put this.
Now we can't hear you.
Okay. Here. So I prepared the. Can you see the? Can you see my spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, so here is the financial information for the first 6 months, and as of December 31st, our combined fund balance has decreased for approximately 1.6 million when we compare it to the June 30th, and the main reason for that is the payout of the GEO bond. And I just want to bring your attention to.
Please look down.
Sorry, I've been feigning. So just want to give you a little bit of background on that. In December, the town council has approved an amendment to the budget. And maybe I can just share that screen, or do you have an access to the materials that Petra sent out? It's like very last page where there is the amendment. So when we were approving the budget last year, because of the pandemic, there was a lot of questions about the revenues. So we didn't know how the year is going to go, and we were challenged or asked to bring the balanced budget, and a lot of items had to be tabled at that time. And there was another suggestion that after 6 months. It wasn't really 6 months because the previous council wanted to do the amendment that we review the revenues and see if we can revisit those items that were tabled. In November, we look at the revenues again, and what our assumptions were was that the first quarter of this fiscal year is going to be 50% of the prior fiscal year, what we collected in the revenues that are generated by tourism, and second quarter, 75% of the prior year. It actually ended up being some of the revenues were more than 100%. So we had, luckily, we've collected more that we assumed or budgeted, and we added the items that were tabled to the budget, to the amendment budget. The main items were pretty much the like placeholder for the website redesign. It's $100,000. Another item was funds or the radius for the beach patrol. It's about like $70,000. We also added a new item, which is a purification system for the town hall. That is actually we're going to get reimbursed from the South Carolina Cures Act that helps with the COVID-related expenditures. And the big item was the repayment of the GEO bond.
I didn't hear that.
Am I fading again? Yeah. Sorry. So the GEO bond that we had, it had a very attractive terms. It was at 1.38 or 138 basis point. However, at the time where we look at our investment that are all with the South Carolina, the investment pool. Right now, the investment dropped, the interest rate dropped from about 200 basis points. So we are at 20 basis points. And we felt that paying it off will be beneficial rather than having that money at that investment.
Am I the only one having this issue where your voice comes in and out? It's very difficult to understand you.
I agree.
No, that's why, I don't know, there's something wrong with my microphone. That's why I'm like trying to lean close to it.
Dorota, if we can pause for 1 second, we can dial in on your phone.
It's very difficult to understand you. Yeah.
And that might work a lot better if we dialed in on your phone.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right there to help you.
Okay, thanks.
Do we
Sorry
have
about that.
something, Keely?
Sorry.
Do we have to do something?
No, if we can just sit tight for 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
We were very fortunate. The revenues ended up being more than 100%. The short-term rentals certainly helped that and some of the other items, but we really didn't know what to expect with COVID.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
Nobody did. No, nobody did. But Marianne, one comment I wanted to make, I want to congratulate Dorota for having the financials in 12 days after the end of the year. I mean, I know it's only 6 months, but I could tell you that there are other organizations that do not have financials completed yet. And so
Really?
for the town to have financials completed in 12 days, that's got to be applauded. And then the detail that you get with the financials. So that's a very good thing.
Thank you. I'll make sure she gets that message. We run a tight ship here.
Alex, you may want to point out that while they're done in 12 days, they're really a reflection of what's recorded. There's no accruals, there's no adjustments. It's basically a modified cash basis that comes right out of the record. So as long as it's posted timely and up to date,
Should be easy.
financial statements are not a problem.
It should be easy. You're right. You're absolutely right. And
But nevertheless, good
when you
job.
run on a cash basis, yeah, right.
I think it's good that last year we had no adjustments to it, but, after the auditors audited it.
But the detail is excellent.
Good, thank you.
Chili,
Oh, there it is.
chili, but I just hear music though.
Hey,
Oh, I'm sorry. Hopefully that will work better.
Yeah, so
It
far
is.
better.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. So anyway, so that's the pretty much a little history about the amendment. And like I mentioned, it was approved on December, at the December town council meeting. So with all this said, I'll just bring your attention to the pretty much P&L. And like I mentioned, the revenues, they continue to exceed the budget, only because those assumptions were really conservative. And the only revenue source that is going to be below the budget is interest. Like I mentioned, since last March, we dropped about 200 basis points. We are going to look at our investment policy. This is one of the goals for this year, that we gonna have create like a little investment subcommittee to maybe look at that. But with the current interest rate environment, there's really not a lot we can do. However, like I mentioned, everything right now is with the investment pool, which is all short-term investments. They don't offer any other options. So we'll look at that within a few months, and but that's one of the revenues that we're going to be below the budget. Everything else, if things continue as they are right now, will be exceeding the budget. The same thing with the expenditures. They all pretty much within the budget. One item, we are currently with about 53% of the for the 6 months of the total budgeted expenditures. One item, the expenditures show right now a positive variance compared to the budget, but it's a timing issue. We had a 500,000 for landscaping, parkway landscaping, that originally were scheduled to be completed by December, but there is some delays. There are some issues with the irrigation, and right now it's scheduled to be completed in February or March. So that variance will be pretty much offset once we pay them. But other than that, everything pretty much looks reasonable and within the budget.
We have no reason to believe that the $500,000 contract is not adequate.
We do think that there may be some change orders. They were running into some issues with irrigation once they started looking at the irrigation. So I think there will be a change order coming in, or some adjustment, change order pretty much, to make up for that. But at that time, I think they were gonna present something soon, because they are close to completion of finishing up with the irrigation. So hopefully we'll see it pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
Dorota, two quick questions. One, on the budget items that were approved at the last, or I guess the November council meeting, or December council meeting of the old council, that required additional funds for board stipends and also changes to the maternity program for the employees. Are those included in the revised budget, or are they just going to be treated in the reserves?
No, they actually are, except for the paternity leave, paternity leave. We didn't assign a number to it. It was just a change in the policy, and the employee handbook was just revised for the change. As far as the stipend for the council and the judge, they are included in a revised budget. So we shouldn't see any, variances in the payroll, line item. But like I said, the paternity, we actually do have an employee who will probably take advantage of that paternity leave coming up next month or in the following month, but we did not assign a number to it.
Leslie, the comment on the landscaping. At one point, Stephanie mentioned, I don't know which November or December meeting, when she pointed out the problems with the irrigation system. She mentioned it would be extended, there would be double crews, and the work should be finished the end of January, February, which is all fine. But she also mentioned that it would be at no additional cost to the town. Now, is that the case, or is this change order you're talking about an addition to some work that she commented on?
So what happened is the change order has not been officially submitted. They were instructed that, because we've heard, on many occasions during the updates, they give us that the irrigation is in really bad shape and they repairing it. So they were advised recently that they can't just go ahead and do items and then bill us. We have a procurement process that they have to follow. The change order have to be approved pretty much before the work is approved. So but at that time, I honestly don't know if this is going to be included in this 500, or they were told that if there is any additional cost, the cost, even an estimate or something, has to be brought in front of council before they go ahead and start doing work. So I'm thinking there will be a change order, but there is nothing official yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that means the work hasn't been done until that would happen.
Well, actually, they have done a lot of work, and they were just informing us that there is work, but they never, I guess they weren't informed, or they didn't know they need approval prior to doing any work.
Okay.
So there is some work done. Mm-hmm.
In order to move forward with the plantings and everything, the irrigation system had to be fixed. So that's why they went ahead and did it.
Yes, and again, they were just, I guess, maybe this is like the first job they're doing for municipality, but they didn't realize that, they have to follow the procurement, that they have to seek approval prior to doing work.
Yeah, can we change the topic? Okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
Would you back up just a little bit? When did you re-estimate revenues for this year?
In November. We had, in November, I looked at the monthly collections for, so we pretty much have 5 months of the revenues when we look at them.
All right, and we're basically 10% over projections, over our new revenue estimate.
Yes, sir. But again, December was the one that we're looking at. December was also over it too. But yes,
No,
you can say that.
fine. I'm not complaining about that. That's good. But what I'm really getting to is, are you going to re-estimate revenues for the next 6 months?
No, I think because it's still a lot of unknowns. So what we'll do, we'll just, I do keep up like a monthly spreadsheet with revenues. So I will just report how it is compared to the budget. But you don't amend the budget for revenues. You amend for expenditures. It was just.
No, it depends on what the revenues are. I mean, if you may amend for, I mean, if your revenues are 20% over before the end of the year, I would hope you would amend the budget before I mean, you don't want to carry over that much money, I wouldn't think. My trouble is, if our revenues continue at this rate as compared to our current budget, we will be substantially over by the end of the fiscal year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to be in that position?
Well, we do like to keep the reserves pretty in a good, healthy level because of our being coastal community. We have a lot of unknown expenditures related even to hurricanes or cleanup after that. So, with us is also one thing is that we don't collect property taxes. So I think in a situation when you do collect property tax and you have a huge reserves, then the citizens may complain, or ask to lower the taxes. All our revenues are pretty much, either based on tourism or the services that the town offers. And we can't really, change that. And so I think it would be a good thing, if we have reserves, we'll just put the money in the reserves if they're
Rhoda, I
way
guess
over.
my question would be more towards, just because revenues are up 20, 30, whatever it is, doesn't mean you're going to spend 20, 30% more, right?
No.
Your expense budget will remain the same. So if you're over, that really is a plus. It's a favorable. I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to spend it, right? I mean, you will have to look at it next year.
But that either
The
means
town council will have to look at it next year and decide what they're going to do with that surplus at the end of the day.
that's
right?
true, but that either means we're overtaxing or underspending in some sense, because certainly we're not in a position of what my only point was that we would like the council and the mayor to have as much information as possible. And that would mean, I'm certain that's true. And so we would like to, if our revenues are continue to run at this rate, I would think we would want to give them a heads up about that. That's all.
John, right now we've got close to $10 million in excess surplus. I mean, undecided. I mean, funds that they can do anything with. $10 million. So this has been going on for years. I mean, that surpluses have been building up. So, and I asked that question at one time, and now I'm told that, look, we have to be prepared in case of a major catastrophe. The bridge comes down, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I agree with you, but this is something that's been going on for years.
I think you got to keep in mind that the budget for purposes of a community organization are not as restrictive or as much of a hindrance, if you will, to the operation as it would be a government entity or something else. Budgets are merely guidance for the staff and for management. The actual numbers of what we're looking at, and there's no instance of lowering taxes or hiring taxes based on a budget number. The fact is that the budgets, and hopefully, as we see this whole accounting model develop for community associations and other not-for-profits, we're going to see the budget becoming less and less important, if not completely eliminated from the basic financial statement package. It'll be on it'd be up to the management to use it, but it will not be part of the basic financial statements any longer. Far different from what your experience was, John.
Far different from what, well, my only point was that the council and the mayor, well, it's obvious. As more information we can give them, the better decisions they would make. And if the budget is continuing to run at this kind of a surplus, they should know that. So that was
Sure.
that was,
They'll have it every quarter.
yeah.
And we do, and actually, you know, we are around the corner to start the new budget process. So part of it, when we budget the revenues, it's you know, looking at the projections, looking at actuals. So that will be something that the council, you know, or updated well and inform about. And I just want to mention one more thing to Mr. Russ's question. You know, a lot of those revenues actually that are over the budget are tourism related, and they restricted to that spending too. So, for example, like the state accommodation tax, that's a big one. So let's say if we don't spend that money, we budgeted a pool or an amount for this year for the state accommodation tax, which is really it's really heavy restricted by the state, and all this money and also this money has to be spent within 2 years. So whatever is left will be rolled over to next year pool and will be spent next year too. So yeah, just
wait a minute.
a comment about those
Can you
reserves.
say that again? So I understand that this all has to be spent. It's restricted. Our spending is restricted for this pot of money, right?
Right.
All right.
That's
And
correct.
so if we don't, well, but that's the thing that's where our revenue estimates are least successful, right? I mean, our variance is the largest, right?
Well, yes, but like I said,
Wait.
you know,
So that money then we roll to next year, and then what happens?
so for when we go back to the state accommodation tax, because this is the only one that is time restricted too. The other ones are restricted to a purpose. So every year that money is being pretty much dedicated, or we fund different organizations on the island that have some tourism relation to it, or pretty much there is a state accommodation tax committee that will meet in April, and I'll give them an estimate of what we're thinking we're gonna get in that pool, and they divide that money among those organizations that apply for the funding, and then the town council, of course, approves that. But all this money is going to be spent.
And
One of the
that's organizations like the resort
yeah.
and
With
what,
Freshfields, the town is also one of the applicants because we fund our police and the beach patrol partially from those funds. So, like for example, this year I believe we had $1 million to be spent for those organizations, and if we collect more money in that state accommodation tax, next year pool is going to be just bigger.
Let me get back to the investment. What the debt service? What interest rate is that debt?
It's paid off.
And it was 138 basis point. The one we just paid off was 138.
Okay, so it's low interest. I mean, it's low, very low compared to what. I mean, we're not paying more than we can get on our money. That's what you're saying, right? So.
Right.
We were. That's
We
why
were until until the summer, pretty much, or until like April. Yes. When we got the bond, it was 5 years ago. It was very attractive. So and we were earning like 20 to 20 basis points, 200 or 200 basis points. So it was worth to keep the money and just paying the interest. Right now we earning only like last month was 24. Yeah, that's why we pay this off.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Any questions?
Just maybe, and go back to John's point, this may be an oversimplification, but ATAX money can only be spent to improve, in effect, tourism and tourism-related activities. So if it's in that narrow corridor, we can use it on anything we can justify as being tourist-related, such as the beach patrol when more people are at the beach, at the resort when more people are at the resort, security when we need more security, et cetera. And they can allocate it that way. So I don't think there's any real risk that the money won't be spent. The question is how much of it and when, and that's what the budget's going to show when they get to the actual versus the projection.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, or?
I guess I just have a comment. As a less knowledgeable financial person, I was really surprised when I saw the amount of money we had in our reserves. I was used to seeing a budget of 2 to 3% for reserves, and this is significantly higher. And it was explained to me, for example, in Hilton Head last year when they had the hurricane, it cost them $1 million a day to get themselves up and running again. So given that we are a coastal community, the risks that we face are different than some other communities, and therefore the amount of reserves is much higher.
I don't think there's anything wrong with reserves.
No.
And also one thing that we have, planning, or I don't know the timing of it yet, but beach renourishment. And those projects, they go in millions. So we do need to put the money aside for a future, like it came handy with the parkway right now, because we, that was a big project, and another 500 for landscaping, and we had the money to, luckily to spend on it. So we also, designate some of the reserves for specific projects. Like I said, right now it's going to be a beach renourishment, but the rest is, a lot of it is for emergency.
It would seem to me that an interesting conversation would be, what's our optimal reserve level? Because most governments have a set percentage. It's usually called a rainy day fund, but they have a percentage that they want to keep in the reserves.
Right.
And it seems to me it would be an interesting discussion for our mayor and council members to have, to talk about, just building up a reserve continually. I don't understand. But I do understand about the hurricanes and so on, but it seems to me that there could be an interesting discussion about how much reserves we want to have, and that would also imply how much we could spend on a year-to-year basis.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dorota.
No, I was just going not to spoil, but we getting ready for the retreat this week, and one of the items is items that I want to talk about is one of my goals that we want to put like emergency, like a draft of an emergency plan in place. So by that is what happens. We had. A couple of years ago when Matthew, I believe was Matthew, Hilton Head was really hard, was hit very hard. and when they had to raise taxes, property taxes. So we want to prepare something. What can we do? Because that 20 million that we have, it may not be enough. So one of them, it's a great suggestion that you have. We can add to it, like what level, if there is a desire to have a level of reserves. But I will bring it up to the council and see if, you know, if they want to look at that too. But we will look at what can we do. Right now we have a credit line for 100,000 and the reserves. That's what we have if something bad happens. But we want to look up if we need to, for example, have property tax to, you know, just if the damages are so bad, what can we do? How fast it could be? Does it need a referendum? So we want to get some details about just an emergency financial plan in place. And I will, you know, what you suggested to have a level of reserves. If there is any desire for that, we'll talk about that too. That's
Well,
a good, very good point.
the auditors annually at the end of their year-end audit discussion with us, have one of the comments they have is commented about the level of reserves. And I've interpreted their comments to be very positive about our financial position. And, you know, I guess I come from the school of thought that that it gives us flexibility to deal with any potential bad situation. It also gives us the potential to maintain our assets in a way that our property owners and voters want us to maintain. Mm-hmm. So that's how I sort of look at this. I guess I gain comfort that the community association has substantial reserves and the town has substantial reserves, and we're blessed by that.
I think, Jim, it's clear that at least in the last 4 years, the auditors have used a known benchmark, if you will. It's published. It's not something that they invented, but they report to the council every year that there's the threshold that's expected for institutions like ours is basically met every year, and the excess is substantial, but then point out that because we're a beach community, because we have the risk that we have, the excess is not unusual, number one, and excessive, number two. So they're comfortable with it. We're comfortable with it, as Jim stated. The key is what responsibilities do we have? And Kika has theirs, and they reserve for their needs, and the town reserves for our needs. And so far, so good. But I think Dorota, in her comment, suggested they're going to talk about a disaster plan, and that could be a substantial burden on reserves if, in fact, it has to be implemented. And that's something that they have to struggle with and figure out if more are needed.
It would be a substantial expense daily. We had looked at if the bridge went out, for example, and we had to put in a temporary bridge, the company that does that, it's going to be extremely expensive per day to have that kind of work done, so we can protect our residents and the island.
Yeah, Mary Ann, as I understand that, that's just basically to hold a spot so we can get a bridge if it goes out. It's
That's
not
right.
even pay for it once it's in.
You're right.
That's correct. Yeah.
So there's a lot there that we have to consider, or the town has to consider, and the reserves may have to go up, and certainly they're not going to go down.
You know, I wonder, and probably if information is not available, but I reflect back onto 1989, and that I bet you that there wasn't anything functioning around here for probably 60 to 90 days. and the cleanup costs and the, and there clearly was no revenue stream coming at that point in time.
Right.
And so I think, I probably just need to go back and look at the the June 30, 1990 financial results, and you can get a flavor for what is the impact of a major storm.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful discussion. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, although I do want to I'm certain you all know, but there are other ways to fund a disaster than trying to keep reserves for it. And all of those other ways, I would think, would also be on the table, or should also be on the table. Because I think trying to fund a hurricane disaster out of whatever reserves we could gather would be very difficult. So I think we should also put on the table other possibilities of, if we're going to talk about this sort of a disaster, what are the supplements to the reserve that we should bring up and have as a part of that discussion?
Point, John.
And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to look at, those other alternatives and what the town, as a town, what we can do. And that's the plan that I mentioned that we will look at and present to council.
Doretta, when you do that and present it, I think I would be hopeful that you would share that with the members of the audit committee as well.
Sure, I will do that. Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else for today or any questions?
Well, for today I have a question, but not on the financials. And that's really directed towards our chairwoman. And that is, what do you expect from the audit committee?
Well, I expect that you will analyze the information we present, evaluate it, and give us any guidance on or any warnings, that we're going in the wrong direction. That's what I would hope, that you are all experts and you can complement the work that we do, that Dorota does, and move from there.
What do you see our relationship with the auditors to be?
Actually, I'm not sure. I haven't talked to Dorota about that. I did speak to her this morning and asked to select the auditors. And evidently that's a process that you go through every 5 years.
Not 5, but yeah, we do. We do meet with the auditors. After the audit's completed. We also consider a reappointment of the auditors.
Right.
Make the recommendation to council on that. The key is we do have to consider who the auditors are, what level of service we've gotten, and when and if we need to change. I will point out in connection with our current auditors, Molden Jenkins out of Atlanta, my own overview of the last 2 years when we've had them has been a substantial improvement in the current year. That's not to say that there's still not room for more improvement. But having said that, they have, interestingly enough, as this whole background of reporting and accounting for these types of entities is in a pretty good state of flux. The accounting for it is being led by the GASB, or the Government Accounting Standards Board, and the new chairman of that Accounting Standards Board is a partner from Molden Jenkins. So I assume he's retired and serving on the board, but I'm sure they also have some direct links to that organization, or will have continued links, and they should be in the forefront of reporting on changes to us and would be helpful in that respect. And that's not an endorsement of them going forward, just something that we need to consider going forward. And I think we need to meet with the auditors. Should be on your agenda for a meeting.
Okay.
Before they start the meeting, before they start the audit in June or July.
All right, why don't we make a note of that and we'll schedule it so that we can get together before the audit is started.
Okay,
Good
I'll find something.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Dorota, do you have anything?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
You, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Aye.
second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.